Two strangers walked into a bar, and they walked out with their own radio show.
I've never been with a man before.
Looks like I'm the boss now.
He's Derek.
The world is your oyster. Just shit on it.
She's Romaine.
I've got a handful of shit.
It's Derek and Romaine.
2.0, bitches! Oh, Derek.
I know. We've been at this for a very long time. We are our own part of history here at Derek and Romaine.
Yeah, we
and
are.
Still just a handful of shit. Thank you, everybody.
That's us. Gotta love us. Woo!
That's right. Because it is a new year, we've talked on the show about all sorts of movies and music plays that have moved into the public domain, as happens at the beginning of a new year. But one of the things that also happens annually around this time is the National Film Registry selects movies for preservation. So these are not these are frequently still movies that are held by copyright holders. But back in 1988, they started announcing a selection of films every year that would be set aside for preservation, because one of the things that people discovered about film is that the silent film was on old nitrate stock, which was fell apart easily, but also caught fire easily.
Oh.
I don't know if you know about this, but
I do remember this. It was very flammable.
Very flammable. And so they had a lot of problems with it, and a lot of silent movies were lost because once sound came around, everyone was like, nobody needs these old silent movies anymore. And so a lot of those films were lost. Most silent movies were lost. So there has been an aggressive campaign to find and preserve whatever remaining silent films there are. But because the focus was so much on silent film, there was not an effort to preserve sound film. But there were problems with good prints of various sound films actually being preserved in good quality over time. So what the National Film Registry started doing in 1988 is that each year they would select from people who would vote. People would submit their ideas of movies that they felt are of historical, cultural, or aesthetic value. And so that those movies could be identified for preservation, so that even if the companies that own the films are not actively preserving them, they are being preserved for future generations. So I thought it would be fun, Romaine.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I know you hate it when I use the word fun.
Yeah, because it's never fun. It's always going to be something horrible for me. But okay, let's do this. Let's do it.
It's not horrible.
All right. We'll see.
So for the new year, the public submitted 6,875 films for recommendations for being preserved. And so the National Film Registry selected 35 films dating back to the silent era. I think the oldest is from 1921.
Okay.
But the newest is from 2013.
Oh.
So there are actually movies on this list that you, Romaine Patterson, have seen.
Oh, okay.
And you might be surprised that they have been added to this list. But I think that they are trying to have a selection of movies that are both sort of historic movies that maybe people haven't seen or heard of, but also more recent movies that people might not realize could be at risk of not being preserved. And part of it is because it might have been a popular hit, but it wasn't necessarily a movie that people thought, oh, well, this is so artistic. We have to make sure we have a 4K preservation of it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so on that, I would put one of the movies I know you have seen, Desperately Seeking Susan.
Really?
Yes. Madonna's famous classic movie, Desperate
Yeah. Loved that movie. Such a great movie.
I know. And it is on the registry list. So, see, it's
Oh.
not just a bunch of old
Okay.
movies that
Yeah.
nobody has ever heard of. Like, for instance, the Bobulano family film collection from the 1950s through the 1970s.
Never heard of that.
I haven't either. I assume it's some family vacation film or whatever that they filmed. But because it is sort of life over a 20-year period, it's like, well, this
Right.
should be preserved as a piece of history.
Or not.
But yeah, I agree. I'll probably never see it.
Yeah, I don't anticipate seeing it myself. So yeah.
No,
Okay.
probably not.
Yeah.
But of the films that are on the list that you may have seen or heard of, there is the recent documentary 20 Feet from Stardom from 2013. That's the documentary about backup singers.
Oh, that's interesting. I never
Yeah.
thought about a documentary about backup singers, but yeah, that is an interesting job.
But it is available on streaming, and I believe it won the Oscar for
Oh, really?
Best Documentary. Yeah, I feel like it did. I know
Maybe
it
I
got,
should see this. That sounds interesting.
yeah, it is on some of the streaming platforms. So if you haven't seen it,
Yeah.
that is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because it is people who have made some of your favorite songs, but they are not household names.
Right.
So that's an interesting part of, pop culture history. I'm going backward in time here. So 12 Years a Slave, also from 2013.
Wow.
And winner of Best Picture
Yeah.
in that year. But they also set that aside for film preservation.
Okay.
But you saw that movie, right?
I did, I believe. Yeah. Years ago.
You don't remember?
I can't remember all the movies I've seen. Do you really remember every movie you've ever seen?
Sometimes, this happened recently. I was on Max, and one of the
Yeah.
top 10 movies that people were watching was Maze Runner Scorched Trials. And I knew I had seen the original Maze Runner movie.
But had you seen the Scorched Trials one? I read the book.
And I watched the trailer, and I was like, I think I've seen this movie, but I
Right.
don't 100% remember. And it came out in, 2015, so it wasn't like 50 years ago.
Right.
But I'm like, what a memorable movie. But I thought, you know what? During the break, I got time. Why not watch young people, dirty,
Right.
running around, being chased in a dystopian future? Why not? I know people think that I'm like Mr. Snooty, fancy movie all the time.
Right.
But I'll watch Dylan O'Brien in a Maze Runner movie.
Okay.
Anyway, I did watch it, and I had seen it.
Oh. I don't think I've watched that movie. I've read the book, but I don't think I've watched the original Maze Runner movie, but I think that was as far as I got. Because once I read the books, I was like, nah, I don't like where this story is going.
Well, it doesn't go to happy places.
It definitely does not.
No.
It definitely does not. And honestly, I hated the book. So I was like, if you don't like the books, you're never going to like the movies. Because the books are always better than the movies.
Why do people like these dystopian worlds?
I mean, I think because it makes them feel better about the shitty world they're living in. Because they're like, well, it could be worse.
Yeah, I could be trapped in a maze by scientists who, spoiler alert, are trying to see how hardy I am to survive, I guess. And then because the outside world has fallen to shambles and is filled with zombies, I think.
Yeah.
Not really clear, but they have some kind of, if you get bitten, disease. So I guess zombie. Okay. But they're trying to create a race of super people who are immune, who can fight the I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I just want to see these people running around. That's all. That's fine.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I watch
To
a
me,
lot of these types of movies and shows and things like that, but Oh, it's a little exhausting.
So probably Maze Runner Scorched Trials will not be on the National Film Registry list anytime soon, but maybe. You never know. Anyway, Love and Basketball, which came out in 2000, is on the list. And Bamboozled, which also came out in 2000. And this is a Spike Lee movie that I really like, and a lot of people did not see.
I did not.
But I actually, it's one of my favorites of his movies. It is about a TV executive. I haven't seen it since 2000, but it's about a TV executive, as I recall, or a TV show, like creator, showrunner, who is trying to get the network to put a show on with Black characters, and basically comes up with a like the most offensive blackface minstrel show, and pitches it to the network to show, like, this is what you guys are saying that you want, the absolute most offensive Black stereotypes. And not only does the network love it and put it on the air, but it becomes this hugely high-rated show that all of America loves. And it's sort of a take on network in that sense of, what the audience wants is garbage. Right. And, if all you care about is ratings, what you will put on the air is bad for people. And anyway, and more recently, there's a movie, American Fiction, which sort of follows the same sort of vein of, people say that they want, even people who say they want highbrow entertainment, what they ultimately want are reinforcement of stereotypes is what they really are looking for when it comes to minority voices. And so I think that this is, especially as a gay person, we have faced this as well. The sort of the juxtaposition between, wanting any representation to wanting, but also wanting quality representation. But there also being a disconnect between what gay people want to see of gay people in media and what straight people want to see of gay people in media. And we've talked about this of like gay people who their fan base is straight people versus gay people that other gay people.
Yeah, that gay people actually care about. That's what I prefer, frankly.
But who can't break through into the mainstream. Right. Not that they don't have any straight fans.
The mainstream is loving all these gay people made for mainstream.
Right. Ugh, so I think that this is an interesting conversation to have. I think it's an important conversation to have. I think if you're going to hold a mirror up to Hollywood, I think it's, these are important things to bring up and talk about. So I am glad that this movie is on the list, and I hope that when people see the list, they go, okay, maybe this is a movie I haven't seen, but I should seek out because it is interesting. Right. And maybe I should see why they want to preserve it. But another movie that I know you've seen, Apollo 13 from 1995.
Oh, God, yeah. I was like, when the hell did that movie come out? That was so long ago.
I know, 1995.
Wow. Okay.
But that was good fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good movie. Yeah.
3 men in a tin can.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Very thrilling. Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Rub-a-dub-dub.
It's even more thrilling and exciting when you actually go to the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and you actually see some of these fucking teeny tiny spaceships that we've sent people to space in. And you're like, oh, man, tiny. They're so stupid. And they look like they're literally made of tinfoil.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, I think that was the most shocking thing about my first visit to the Air and Space Museum was seeing how some of these spaceships were made and just thinking, we sent people to space in this? Like, are we out of our fucking minds? And they made it back? Like, that part is like, it's shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the sort of, from Columbus on, the sort of circumnavigation of the world, and those boats that they went in.
Yeah.
And how horrifying that is. But, like, you go further back as the Vikings.
Oh, my God, those Vikings and those ships.
We're
Jesus
basically
Christ.
in canoes.
Basically on the ocean.
On the ocean.
Yeah,
just
which
like,
is crazy. And by the way, they didn't have any way to like look at the forecast of the weather and determine if there was gonna be a fucking hurricane or not. Like they were just out there willy-nilly.
Yeah, terrifying. So I agree. The people who are explorers, in this sense, they're not waiting until like everything is tight before they hit the road.
Yeah.
But then again, in our teens and early 20s, how many road trips did we take in an unsafe vehicle with not packing everything that we might need?
Yeah.
Oh, good times. Okay. Also of the recent movies, documentary from 1994, Maya Lin, A Strong, Clear Vision. Maya Lin is the architect of the Vietnam Memorial.
Okay.
Which I think, because you've seen the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C.
I have, yeah.
I think it is stunning.
It is.
But it was a bit controversial at the time.
It was?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This happens a lot. The French, they hated the Eiffel Tower when it was built. They thought it was ugly and an eyesore, and now they love it.
The French really like anything, though. I mean, really.
No. They hate everything before they love it in France.
Yeah.
And then, like in New York City, the Chrysler Building, when they built that, people were horrified by it. They thought it was ugly. And it is, I think, one of the most beautiful buildings in New York City.
I agree.
My favorite of the skyscrapers. So sometimes it takes people time to love something. They tore down Penn Station because it was, a Victorian birthday cake. But now people are like, ugh, but that was so much better, these glorious open spaces, than this terrible rat maze. Talk about your scorched trials that are under Madison Square Garden now. So, sometimes people are not loved. Sometimes people don't love things in their time, but they, will love it more later. But the criticism of the Vietnam Memorial at the time was that it was black. Right. Instead of this sort of traditional white marble that we are so used to. People thought that using black made it reflect shame. And, people had mixed feelings about the Vietnam War. Certainly it was quite controversial in the 1970s. And then also that it was like below grade, that it goes underground as opposed to being a monument that is built up like we're so used to, like the Washington monument, which is obviously like pointing right up to the sky.
Yes.
But I actually think that the, descending into the Vietnam Memorial is really powerful. And what I like about the Vietnam Memorial is that it is much more of an experience. You are really experiencing something when you're there. Like it is making a statement in its physicality that is different than the statement that the Lincoln Memorial is making, where you are climbing up steps to an oversized statue of a person.
Right.
Like that is also making a statement in its physicality, right?
Sure.
And so I like that the Vietnam Memorial is making a different statement of physicality, which I find interesting. So,
Okay, so that's on there. What else you got on there? There's a lot of stuff on this list.
I know. The Wedding Banquet, which was one of Ang Lee's first movies. It's a movie that I like from 1993. It is a gay movie.
I remember the title, but I don't remember the movie.
So it's actually quite an enjoyable little movie. It is about a gay guy who I think he's from Hong Kong, and he has moved to New York City, and he has a boyfriend. And his parents, his traditional Chinese parents, want him to get married to a woman.
Of
course. They are coming to the United States to visit, whatever. Anyway, it's been like 2 years or 3 years since I've seen it. But basically, they put on a wedding. He decides to marry a woman to please his parents.
Oh, homos, don't do that.
And they come to visit and are living with him. And like his boyfriend is still living there also,
right,
while he is sort of like being married and whatever. And it's actually a really beautiful movie. Obviously, Ang Lee he's straight, and he directed Brokeback Mountain. So this
Right.
is not his. This was his first gay movie, but not his last. And part of why for him in doing the movie is he wanted to tell this story of somebody who is struggling to make their own path out of the traditions of their family and the
Right.
expectations of their family.
Oh, family. They fuck everything up.
And, and being in the new world, being separated from their life and their ways. And he really felt that having somebody be gay would really exemplify for people, like, why you have to make that kind of a break.
Right.
In a way that that audiences would understand. But it's a sweet movie. It's a low budget independent film, but it's actually a really lovely movie, and I'm glad it's on the list because I hope that people will see it. Because believe me, we had a lot of gay movies in the '90s that were not bangers.
Yeah.
But The Wedding Banquet is quite good. But also Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
What?
From 1991. That's right.
Really?
Come with me if you want to live. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
See, so
Dang.
there are movies on here that that you have seen that are popular movies. But there were step forwards in special effects, like digital effects in Terminator 2. Also, it was about like the still concerns about technology, about
Right.
nuclear war. There were a big overhang from the 1980s, but also the coming computer age and people's concerns about that with the threat of Skynet.
Right.
Now, in retrospect, we're kind of like, maybe Skynet had a point.
Maybe. Probably. I think
little
so.
awkward. Does humanity deserve to survive?
I don't know.
But I do think that the concerns about a sentient computer future are very much with us in our AI era, and in that regard,
Sure.
Terminator 2 is as resonant today as it ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh,
It's fucking scary.
and
the
Home
world.
Alone, a holiday classic. It's also on the list from
I
1990.
mean, that would make sense, I think. How could you have a world without Home Alone? Got to keep that one around forever and
Yeah.
ever.
For future generations. To wonder
Absolutely.
how that family could afford that house.
Yes. How could they? I wish I could afford that house. I can't. Let me be clear about this right now. I cannot afford that house.
Well, you wouldn't want to have all those kids either.
Oh, God, no. I barely like the kid I have.
I know, and you've only got the one.
I only have the one. Yeah.
And she came from 8 kids, and she doesn't even like all of them.
No. No, she does not. Oh, Lord.
Believe me, if Romaine was going to Paris, there's any number of Patterson siblings. She'd be happy to leave home alone.
Yes. All of them. I would want to go all by myself. Fuck those other Pattersons.
We did have such a great time in Paris without your
Oh,
Patterson family,
God,
didn't we?
didn't we? Yes.
I didn't miss Kevin once.
Nope.
Kevin can wait.
Yeah. Yes, he can.
All right.
Fuck that shit.
Well, there is a Disney classic on the list, Lady and
Oh.
the Tramp from 1955.
Oh, I love Lady and the Tramp.
I know.
I mean, it's no Fox and the Hound, but it's all right. It's a cute movie. I do like Lady and the Tramp. I've always liked that movie. Who do you most relate to in that movie? Of all the characters, do you have one you relate to? I think you're one of those Siamese cats. There, I said it.
Because I'm so bitchy. You think
Mhm.
I'm so bitchy that I'm both Siamese cats?
You could be both of them, yeah. I just think you're like looking for a way to fuck up people's lives just cause it's fun. I don't know why I think that. That's horrible. I shouldn't say that about you. Actually, I think you're more like the Scottish Terrier.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see you in that kind of role.
And who are you, Tramp?
I mean, probably. I'm certainly not Lady. I mean, I guess
No.
I could be like the dumb old hound dog.
Right.
I could
okay,
maybe be him, and you could be the little Scottish Terrier. And that makes sense because you and I are like always, attached at the hip.
Yapping at each other.
Uh-huh.
That is a big part of our appeal,
Yeah.
apparently. I've
Yeah.
heard.
Mm-hmm.
And then one old movie
Okay.
from 1933, Dinner at 8. I have
don't
to
know this
say,
movie.
well, it is about people coming together for a dinner party, and it's very different characters who are coming together for a dinner party. And it was a MGM movie when MGM was the glamour studio with the most glamorous stars in the 1930s. Very sophisticated stuff, gorgeous gowns, beautiful sets, gorgeous movie stars, high quality. This was their thing at MGM.
Right.
To such a point that when they were making the movie Blackboard Jungle in the 1950s about a poor high school. It was set in a poor high school. And so the director put fingerprint smudges by the light switch by the door because he wanted the set to look lived in. Oh. And every night the MGM production crew would come in and repaint it.
Oh, no. Because
they were so, their ethos at MGM was everything has to be gorgeous and pristine at all times. So they couldn't even oh, no, we got smudges on the wall. We have to fix this. Yeah. And the director was stop repainting the wall. I want it to look like this. But this was their sort of quality was their sort of ethos. Anyway, so Dinner at 8 has all the big stars of the era that are in it. In particular, Jean Harlow, who died quite young. Her family, they were Christian Scientists or something, and she had her appendix burst or something, and then she died at the age of 24, 25, something like that. Because they didn't seek medical treatment for her. It was heartbreaking. But she was very young and a huge star. And this is one of her, big hit movies. Marie Dressler, who had been a silent film star who fell on hard times. And then she got cast in a supporting role in Greta Garbo's first talkie, Anna Christie. And then she became a big, her career resurged. And then she starred in Min and Bill and was a big star. And then she died a year after this also, pretty soon after. But she's in it. She's a great old lady comedian. But I have watched it, and it's a pretty creaky movie. Gotcha. I love a good classic movie. But honestly, the best thing in the entire movie is at the very end when Jean Harlow says she read a book. And Marie Dressler has an over-the-top reaction to it. And Jean Harlow says, it was a nutty kind of a book, all about how in the future machines will replace every person. And she looks at Jean Harlow and says, oh, that's something you'll never have to worry about. Oh. Because she's, this hot, gorgeous lady. But you don't actually, spoiler alert on Dinner at 8, you don't actually see the dinner. Literally everybody walks into the room for dinner, and that's the end of the movie.
Oh.
It's 8 o'clock, movie's over.
Dang. Okay.
Sounds
like a decent movie.
Yeah, look, I appreciate that they have preserved it because it is sort of peak MGM, sort of peak of their movie stars, and these sort of big star, putting a bunch of stars together. It's basically like the Avengers of sort of the 1930s, a movie that has 10 movie stars in it. MGM also did this with Grand Hotel. It was another one of sort of interlocked stories of different characters. In Grand Hotel, it's all about all of these different people who are staying in, I think it's a hotel in Budapest. But it's all about the characters coming and going from this big hotel. And so, people might actually enjoy, if you want to see something like that, you might actually enjoy Grand Hotel more than Dinner at 8. But one of the movies that got preserved.
Well,
so
it sounds like this group that's deciding these movies that need to be preserved, they're really putting a lot of thought into it. And it sounds like they've made some good selections. I wonder which ones didn't make the cut. I'm more interested, I think, in that. Which ones were close, but no, didn't make the cut.
Yeah. I guess we'll never know. But each year they submit different lists. I do think they are trying to preserve films from a bunch of different eras. They have some
clearly
films
different
from
genres.
other countries, different genres, and exploring different parts of life. I think with the more recent movies, you get a bit more diversity in the cast, so they're able to preserve some of that. But Fame from 1980 is on there.
Yeah.
featuring one of Romaine's favorite karaoke songs.
Yes, indeed. One of my very, very, very favorite ones.
Well, and this is what this kind of film preservation is all about. Fame and films living forever.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think Derek and Romaine is going to live forever.
Possibly.
Also, well, I mean, in the digital archives of our show. At the very
Absolutely.
least.
Yeah. Yeah. We are going to live forever, Derek, and it's a good thing.
Yes. And while we're living forever, we're going to hit the road and have a fantastic travel adventures. And coming up next, we're going to talk all about great adventures with our guest, Sean Hornbeck, coming up next here on Derek and Romaine.
More Derek and Romaine next.
Derek here along with Romaine, and joining us, it is Sean Hornbeck. He is the founder of the Connected Traveler and also the executive vice president of sales at International Lifeline, which Romaine has become very interested in.
I am.
And
strangely so, yes.
We will definitely be talking about that. But he will be at the New York City Travel and Adventure Show January 27th and 28th. And we will be there too in the LGBTQ pavilion. So go to travelshows.com to join all three of us there. You can use the discount code DNRVIP in order to get free tickets to the show. Sean, so nice to have you with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm actually excited to talk to you for a whole bunch of reasons. But I guess we'll start by talking a little bit about what you do at the Connected Traveler, because it's in some ways similar to what we do at DNR Travel.
Yeah, you know it is. We call ourselves travel designers because what we primarily do is actually put together trips for the LGBTQ community, primarily working with luxury tours. And I also have a very large employee rewards program with some of the larger employers. You know, before I became a travel agent, I worked in hostile takeover litigation. So I explained to people that prepared me for travel.
Wow.
Because a vacation really is like a hostile takeover.
And had to rearrange tickets, and trust me, those hostile takeover litigation tickets skills came in handy.
I can only imagine.
What is your favorite offbeat or unexpected destination?
Oh, gosh, there's actually quite a few to choose from on that one, but I'll tell you the one that surprised me the most, especially considering the environment today, was probably Krakow, Poland.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, I was amazed. That city was not bombed out during any of the world wars, and that town square was just amazing. And talk about food and restaurants, and it was just such an international city. And some of the best Italian food I ever had was actually in Krakow, Poland.
Wow.
So
That's kind of cool.
It just shocked me, to be honest with you, because especially with all the preconceived notions that you might get when you're going in there, but it was absolutely a beautiful city. I really enjoyed touring it. And whenever we do things or I do things, one of the things I always look for, it's kind of the new catchphrase here, immersion travel, right? Where everyone's going and you want to go see the things, but it's now when people are traveling, they don't just want to see things. They want to actually experience the thing. They want to understand the culture behind it. It's everything that allows us to kind of expand our own horizons. And that city in particular, the people were super friendly. And wherever you went anywhere, you could just be standing in the town square looking at the cathedral and taking in some of the architecture, and people would come up and actually just say, hey, do you know why this is shaped this way? And they would explain the shape of the building and that they were trying to build around certain there was a tree actually that they were trying to preserve at one point, and it was just fascinating to see and how people would come up and just share their stories.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that when people think about Europe, they don't give enough thought to, some of the countries in Eastern Europe, especially those that were less impacted by World War II and also were behind the Iron Curtain for so long. So, Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, because I was just in Prague a couple of weeks ago, and these gorgeous European cities, these world capitals that are stunning, but also can be a great bargain compared to more storied capitals like Paris, for instance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I got a cup of coffee in Paris the last time I was there, and I think I'm paying off the third mortgage for that now.
And I get it. People want their picture with the Eiffel Tower and that kind of thing. But there is a lot more to a city than just, sort of one big famous site. And obviously Paris has a lot to offer. The museums are incredible. The city is itself just absolutely stunning. But there are other wonderful places to see all around the world that people may not initially think of. But our first group cruise we did in Europe, we ported out of Barcelona, and it ended up being everyone's favorite place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And isn't it funny how when you do those things, and I think organizations like the IGLTA, the International LGBTQ Travel Association, for anyone who doesn't know, but what's great about them is that they actually put us in touch with other members of the community. So that way, just that trip to Barcelona that you did, I have one coming up, and I was able to find a boutique hotel that was LGBTQ owned, and it just the little touches and the extras that can go into making that trip a little bit more special and making us feel more at home as we're going through it, especially if you don't speak the language.
Right. And there are vibrant LGBTQ communities in so many of these places. And when they are underserved by tourism, it's tough, for them to keep going. But the gay scene in Barcelona was delightful. And it can be for LGBTQ travelers, it can be a delightful surprise when you go to one of these countries and discover a really vibrant community that is there. Many of them have gay neighborhoods, so there are hotels, there's bars, there's restaurants, there's lots to do, and frequently a rich history for the community as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So
Romaine does want to talk to you about Lifeline.
I do. I'm very interested in this because, people are familiar with things like travel insurance and things like that, but Lifeline seems different. And what you guys do is kind of wild. So can you explain to people how it's different?
Oh, absolutely. I got involved with Lifeline because they actually recognized that the LGBTQ community is an underserved community.
Sure.
And when we travel, a lot of times we have to take other considerations into effect just outside the norm. Like, for example, whether we're legal in a particular country.
Right.
Right? So they approached me, and I really was excited to get to work with them. International Lifeline kind of covers the gap that trip insurance doesn't cover. So when you're talking about International Lifeline, what it primarily is three different areas. First, it covers medical evacuation and repatriation. So if you have an emergency while you're traveling and you suddenly need to be airlifted anywhere, you have a medical issue, you would contact International Lifeline, and let's say you had to be you fell and you needed an airlift or something, or you were doing the stairs in Santorini and you slid down the stairs.
Don't get us started about that. We know all about those stairs. Ooh, girl.
I might be giving an example of a real story that happened with my partner. So No, I don't want to pay 10 euros for an ass. You know what? He's learned if I tell him pay $10 for an ass, he's going to do it going forward. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. It's valid.
But as he slides down the stairs and, tourist rotator cuff, what allows them to do is you tell them you need help, guess what? They come and they get you. And what is really great about it is they don't just take you to the nearest hospital. They take you where you want to be taken.
Oh.
So if that means that you want to go back to your hospital back in the States, that's where you're going. And they take you and your partner. And a lot of times, say something happens with insurance care, a couple things happen. One, you don't know that you are not going to have to come out of pocket and pay for it first.
Right.
And then get reimbursed. And $25,000 or $50,000 is not going to cover that.
Right.
So that's where International Lifeline comes into play, because they don't have any extra out-of-pocket expenses. So literally someone could get picked up at one port and go get medical treatment and then be taken back over to the next port and resume their cruise along the way. It makes it a much more attractive option, and family members can go with them. They don't suddenly say, no, you're not going, you have to go on the ship, or you have to fly commercial and we're going to take your partner home by themselves. None of that. The other thing that it covers is civil and political unrest.
Okay.
So remember when there were folks rioting in Paris?
Yeah.
And some people who actually wanted to come back, guess what? That's something where we were able to actually bring folks home when they were having problems with airlines, they were having problems getting out. We were able to pick them up. The current situation in Israel.
Yeah.
We actually still service Israel.
Oh, man.
So whereas other insurance carriers have actually issued things saying if you have a client going to Israel right now, we're not going to cover any new policies that are written. People could buy our membership today, and if they were there and they needed to come back for any particular reason, we'd be able to get them.
Wow.
We're not limited to what's happening with the airline.
Here's the question I have, though. How do you make this happen? Like, I just feel like this is like some real, crazy mission kind of stuff, some of this stuff. Like you're like going into Israel. I mean, you're basically going into a war zone. That seems scary and terrifying.
So, well, understand this. There's two things. One, the company is underwritten by Lloyd's of London, but two, the guys that have run this, the founders actually were the ones. Geos was the original company that Garmin was sold to Garmin, and I think we're all familiar with the Garmin devices, right? With search and rescue, right? Well, these folks started that. So when they branched out and they took over and they started this company, what it really is a continuation of some of the old relationships. And if you look up who the founders are, and you'll see there's whole discovery specials dedicated to them with respect to, because our third area that we cover is, of course, kidnap and ransom.
Gotcha.
And God forbid something like that should happen. But you know what? Here's the thing. If you think about it, we go places all the time, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, for example, isn't there a department advisory right now about kidnap and ransom victim, potential kidnapping of U.S. citizens in Jamaica?
I mean, is there?
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
So, I mean, but yet all of us will get off that port without thinking.
Sure.
Right.
So you don't know what's going to happen, and that's part of the point.
Right.
And thankfully, in 30 years, we have a 100% recovery record of everyone. So, yay.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
That is great. Yeah, I mean, I think that, people don't like to think about, but what would happen if, X, Y, and Z? Although I do think that after the pandemic, people discovered, one, the value of travel insurance, but also two, they discovered very quickly what travel insurance did and didn't cover. So I think it is important for people to, you don't want to worry yourself sick about something that has a very low probability of happening. We've been doing group events for a decade. We've never had to have anybody airlifted out of anywhere, thank God. But we do large groups, 150, 200 people, and at least one of those people on a group of that size will require some level of travel insurance assistance, whether it's their bags didn't arrive at the cruise ship, like little things, right? Where now you're without your bags for a couple of days or the entire trip, or they've missed their flight and then they're missing the cruise, or there's like a medical thing that happened. So it's not like everybody has it, and it's always everybody needs it, but there is usually at least one person who does. So if you think about that, you have a 1 in 150, 200 chance of needing some level of travel insurance, but it also means that there is a level of risk that, you could be climbing up the side of a pyramid in one of these countries and fall off it. Those Mayan pyramids are steep.
They are.
Here's the thing. Let me give you more realistically, when we get called, a lot of times it's not that they were falling up the system, but a good example, there was a group that was on a bus tour recently, and the woman was at a restaurant, And through her own fault, first thing she said, this is no one's fault. There was nothing on the floor. I didn't trip over anything other than I wasn't looking at where I was going, and I walked myself right into this pole, and she fell down, and she actually broke her arm or sprained her arm. She wasn't sure which. But they were on a bus tour. That bus can't sit there and wait for her to go get medical. They're scheduled for the next stop.
Right.
So they have to basically having the membership allowed that family to go ahead and get picked up, get the facilities they needed, get the medical treatment they needed at the time, and they were able to take the woman straight back to her home, or they could take them down the road. Now they chose to just go down the road and get treated and then get taken home, repatriated back to their home. But that's it. I mean, that's even just domestically or internationally, no matter where we're traveling. These things come into play all the time. And I tell folks, look, you buy insurance and you buy memberships like this, you buy AAA with the hopes that you're never going to use it.
Right.
Okay? But if you're buying AAA every year, when for comparable cost of making sure that you're protected for all the other situations, it's worth it. And the thing is, like, I have a kid in college. He's in another city. And we cover anything that's more than 99 miles away. So when you're in college, your residence is at your parents' house. It's not the dorm room.
Right.
Something happens to him, and I want to bring him back home so he can see his doctors or something like that. I can, if he has a car, God forbid he has a car accident or something like that, immediately. I now have ways to bring him home, and none of that without having it cost me any more money.
I mean, that is pretty convenient. I got to be honest. When I travel, I know people get injured while traveling a lot. I mean, I've seen it. I've been on snorkel excursions where people have gotten seriously injured. There's a lot of ways you can get hurt while traveling. And, oh, man, I mean, the idea of how do you handle that if it happens to you, it's terrifying to me.
And it's just different if you have an advocate. Like, you push a button on an app or you call a phone number and say, hey, I'm hurt. And you've got somebody who's going to oversee the whole process to get you through. I mean, think about that young couple that was on the Carnival cruise that went out of Tampa, the two ladies. They rented a scooter, and then they got hit in a hit and run. Well, one had insurance, the other one didn't. The one with insurance ended up needing medical treatment. They performed some $25,000 worth of medical treatment, and even though they had the insurance, they wouldn't release her until her parents came up with $25,000 to pay the bill because they weren't sure how the insurance was going to work. Again, a situation where you're kind of getting reimbursed as opposed to having all those things covered. And then they missed the cruise ship back, and they had no way to get because of all the health that they had. I mean, that just happened within the last few months in Tampa.
Oof. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's why our catchphrase is careful, careful.
Careful,
but there
careful.
are some things that are out of our control.
Yeah.
And, it is definitely something to keep in mind. All right. Well, you can check out International Lifeline at internationallifeline.com. And then on the more fun side of travel, Sean, we have recently become converts to VIrgin Voyages, and I know you have too. So for people who have been hearing a lot about it and may not take our word for it, what are your thoughts on VIrgin Voyages as a travel professional, but also as a gay person who travels?
Well, let me tell you, I was an early Virgin convert, and I'll tell you, a month before I went on my first Virgin cruise, I was on a bear cruise where we had separate events on the ship, and there was dancing, there was everything else. On that cruise, that we were a little bit of a spectacle. People kind of kept looking over the side, seeing who's going in the room, things like that. And it wasn't exactly a comfortable experience for me. And it was just weird because I had never had that particular environment happen before. So although we had separate events, my partner and I never even danced.
Oh.
On Virgin Voyages, the very first night at the pajama party, my partner grabs me and says, "Come on, we're dancing." And you have to understand, I mean, he's 6'2", pretty big guy, bear. not normally going to grab me and take me to the dance. He's like, come on, we're going. And we were dancing out there the very first night of the cruise, right, with everybody else. And it was just, you felt at home and you didn't have anything. It was very comfortable and it was very inviting. And the entire cruise experience was like that. And I tell people, look, and you asked for professional experience, I think before you get on the cruise, the admin side could drive you insane. You're going to complain to me about the app, and you're going to complain about a whole bunch of other things. But once you get on the cruise, in all honesty, everything could go wrong. You wouldn't even know, and you'd still have the time of your life.
I agree with that.
And it's true. I mean, yes, they're new companies, so there's still little growing pains there, right? You get the complaint of somebody's sailor loop fell off, or the onboard credit suddenly disappeared off the account. But then you call up, it gets fixed. That's why you have a travel professional handling the stuff for you.
Yeah.
We watch it. We make sure it's all good. But once you get on board that ship, you'll have the time of your life. And I've never had complaints from anybody going.
Yeah, I one of the things that I have observed with Virgin over the last 2 years is that when there is a gap there, like there's an issue, they acknowledge it and they address it. Mm-hmm. And I have been very impressed that initially we had somebody in our group that was going who was deaf. And I contacted them, and other cruise lines have an interpreter that will come on board as part of the service, as part of their accessibility. And when we first contacted Virgin, they did not have a program in place. But by the time we sailed with them, they did. So, this was a thing where I do feel as a cruise line, they are very responsive to the feedback that they get. People
Absolutely.
when the ships first launched, people had some issues with some of the design and layout in some of the staterooms, and they started making changes to it based on the feedback that they got. And so that part of the cruise line I have been very impressed by. But it definitely, you can tell they are new and they have not been in business for decades because there are sometimes they're like, oh, we hadn't thought about that. Our ships are going in water. Huh. There are definitely things where you're like, what? But it is, I agree, from a consumer standpoint, especially for LGBTQ travelers, it feels the most like a gay cruise of any cruise line that is not an actual, chartered gay cruise. Correct.
Yes. Agree 100%. And I am going to use that story and that explanation for folks. Yeah, it's a great cruise line. They just got to remember water. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Yeah. But I really enjoy the Virgin experience. I think that for them, they have had a hard time in getting people to try them out. But the people who go, I'm sure you've had the same reaction. We have people who go and then they become absolute Virgin fanatics after they go on the ship.
Oh yeah.
Once you drink the Kool-Aid, that's it.
Yeah.
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 I almost feel bad.
Everybody comes back it comes back with these, placeholders. Everybody comes back all excited. When is my next one? When is my next one? When are you going again?
Yeah, I feel bad for people who sail on Virgin as their first cruise, especially gay people, because if they ever go to another cruise line, they may not love it as much.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Virgin is so fucking gay.
Yes.
It's amazing.
There are other major cruise lines that I think are dedicated to equality, that are, try to create welcoming spaces for all travelers and that kind of thing. But Virgin, in this way, Virgin feels younger in terms of its management and its ethos, much more aligned with modern life that a lot of us are experiencing, and not a decade or two behind other social ideas and norms.
I liken Virgin when people ask me what the experience is going to be like. I'm like, well, when I was looking around for a gym and everything else back when I lived in a city, in a bigger city, it was great. I loved Planet Fitness, the no judgment zone. I liken Virgin to the no judgment zone when you get on board.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell everyone, look, it's your no judgment zone. You go be you. They will support you in being your authentic self. And if you want to be out there partying till 3 a.m., they'll support you in that. And if you want to go to bed at 8 o'clock, they'll support you in that. There's things for everyone, no matter what type of experience you're looking for. They have the support there to get you what you're looking for out of that cruise, whether it's just completely relaxation or, hanging out every night till 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever you, or later, whatever you want to do, they'll support you in, but you get to be your authentic self the entire time.
Yeah, I think that's true. I found it a little bit like disconnected how they're sort of putting two messages out at the same time of like, this is really relaxing with sunrise yoga and quality lounging time and everything, while also serving this message of, we party so hard on this ship, you're going to need a vacation from this vacation. And it's like, how are these two things going to work together? But I think you're right. They really are trying to create a space for everybody to make that vacation be what they want it to be. And the nice thing is, if you do party too hard and you need to like recuperate for 2 days, it is a high quality ship to recuperate on. For exactly that reason.
Or you can just go ahead and have hair of the dog and go to the champagne brunch.
Right. Well, there's definitely that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Sean, this has been great. We look forward to spending 2 days with you. I assume we're going to be very physically close at the Travel and Adventure Show here in New York City.
I was going to say, I think we're joining.
That's pretty awesome.
I hope everyone comes and joins the three of us at the New York City Travel and Adventure Show, January 27th and 28th in New York City. We'll be in the LGBTQ Pavilion. Go to travelshows.com. Use the code DNRVIP to get your free tickets to come and see us. And check out Sean Hornbeck. He will be there as the Connected Traveler. Go to theconnectedtraveler.com for more information about his trips and adventures and recommendations. Or come and say hi to him at the Travel and Adventure Show.
Yeah, do that.
And for more on International Lifeline, go to internationallifeline.com. Sean, thanks so much for being with us. We can't wait to see you.
Thank you. I'm going to have to bring popcorn for people to watch the show as we're all sitting there.
Sounds great.
I know. We're going to be a hot mess in there. People are going to want to spend all day with us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sean. Well, there you have it. The end of another perfect episode of Derek and Romaine. And if you want more great fun, go to dnrstudios.com and subscribe to get our show every day. And don't forget, for DNR Plus subscribers, you can use the DNR Cast app for iPhone, available now in the App Store.